Hi, I'm Rachel Meliotis, a senior editor at O'Reilly Media, and I am here at Strata RX with Eric Nelson. He is a solutions engineer at Janrain. Thank you for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
So you work at Janrain,
Yeah.
and you, which is focused on social login and user management, but you're here at Strata RX. So what I'm wondering is, what brings you here and what brings you into the world of health IT?
Yeah, that's a kind of a confusing question for a lot of people. So let me dig in. My fiance owns a primary healthcare clinic in Portland, Oregon, and because of my background as a CPA and with accounting software, it wasn't long after we met before I started helping out with some accounting and some back-end systems. And what I learned is that they are 100% cloud-based. They're totally paper-free, as paper-free as you can be, but there's still a lot of holes in their systems. And that's just because the cloud solutions don't exist for a lot of the medical needs. And so I dove in, I got really excited. I said, wow, there's a lot of opportunity here, a lot of low-hanging fruit. Let me jump in and start building applications. Well, what I found is there's not much low-hanging fruit. And that's because of the HIPAA regulations and just the general state of the medical software industry. Mm-hmm. And so I jumped in. I found out there wasn't a lot of low-hanging fruit, but I also found out that sense of naivety is really critical, I think, in order to bring software innovations from the outside world into the medical industry, mm-hmm. in an industry that's really dominated by giants that don't have it in their best interest to promote interoperability. One of the technologies that I leverage a lot in my own apps, and I think is going to be a game changer for health IT, is delegated and third-party authentication. That's an industry that Janrain created and continues to dominate. So when I got the chance to go work for them, I jumped at it. Mm-hmm. So the typical use case for the delegated third-party authentication is for consumer-facing brands. Mm-hmm. Less obviously, we're starting to get in to help out supplant traditional systems in other areas. So for example, we have a couple of clients that are big pharmaceuticals that are using us to provide healthcare provider verification for their websites. Mm-hmm. So that's really cool, and what we're seeing more often now is take a look at the meaningful use Part 2 regulations, and mm-hmm. a big part of that is patient engagement. Well, one of Janrain's key value adds is engaging users and helping our customers engage their users. What that means for HIPAA is that at least 5% of your patient population has to be communicating electronically with
right.
their healthcare provider. And so I don't know if you've ever had to sign up for a patient portal at a doctor's office.
I have, yep.
Terrible experience, generally speaking. I mean, some of them are better, but generally terrible. A cool example of somebody who's doing it right is DrBase.com. And what they're doing is they're allowing the patients to sign in using their Facebook identity. They're not using Facebook to communicate,
but
they're using their Facebook identity. So it's really seamless and frictionless for the users to sign up. It's easy. They don't have to remember another password. And so that's a good example of technology that was typically used in the marketing side that's now starting to help us with compliance and that kind of stuff.
So I imagine if I were a developer, there would be some challenges when I first started out doing cloud applications for healthcare.
Yeah.
So what are some first steps or lessons learned for you having done this?
Yeah, the biggest challenge by far was the technical architecture, and the biggest component of that is just figuring out what the technical architecture needed to be mm-hmm. in order to meet the compliance stuff. Another one was figuring out how to actually implement that, and as it turns out, you can't use a lot of the application hosting services that you would typically use. The developers like me who are an accountant or some other field
sure.
that got into development secondhand, we use those to leverage our skills in the other domains and to provide us with a really secure computing environment. They take care of a lot of the security aspects and stuff like that.
Right.
So what that means is we're kind of left out in the cold. We now have to go on our own and completely, take care of the hosting and all the other elements that go along with that. And so that's really kind of an unfortunate situation there. Another one of the big challenges was just getting the legal framework in place.
Yep.
So I'm, doing this work out of my own pocket. It would be really easy to blow through an entire, your entire startup budget just on legal fees, getting
sure.
the paperwork into place and figuring out, not only getting the proper documentation, but figuring out how the language changes when you go into the cloud with your application.
So you mentioned HIPAA, which
mm-hmm.
I think everybody knows about.
Yep.
How difficult has that been, adding that aspect into, okay, I'm going to build a cloud app? Has that been really difficult, and what have you done sort of to make it work?
It's, you know, the number one thing I've done to make it work is show up here. It wasn't until dinner last night with some of the other presenters on that are up to speed on the privacy and HIPAA and anything like that. And there were, you know, 4 of us at dinner. And,
That's
and
great.
It wasn't until last night that all of this clicked and everything felt good and like I had a good handle on it.
So I've got kind of a 2-pronged question.
Yeah.
So what do you think's going to happen in the next 5-10 years with health IT, and what would you like to be a part of and see happen?
I'm going to answer the second part of that
Okay.
one. And so one of the things I would most like to see happen is the barriers to entry get lowered. And the barriers to entry are mainly high because of the privacy regulations and this kind of notion where it's CYA first, and innovation really doesn't enter into that equation. So I would like to see kind of that paradigm shift to what can we do to enable innovation and also take care of privacy as kind of equal components there, and not just only privacy.
And since we're all patients, is there anything that we can do sort of to affect change, do you think?
I think there was a presentation this morning that hit on that about taking responsibility for your own healthcare data and mechanisms to transfer that as kind of you end up being your own health repository and being in charge of that. So I think there's a lot of merit to that. And I think one of the other things I would like to see happen is actual true interoperability
Definitely.
be addressed. There's this notion of, you know, the accountable care organizations. I think really instead we should be focused, instead of on ACOs, we should be focused on APIs and easy ways to transfer this data among systems, and I think that really takes the load off of these accountable care organizations to all be one organization. The main advantage to those ACOs is that the data transfers seamlessly in between the different providers. You can see all the notes. There's no drama for the patients or the individuals, and the same thing can happen with you know, loosely coupled components of a healthcare system with good APIs.
Well, that's great. Thank you for the work that you're doing, and thanks for stopping by here.
Yeah, great. Thank you.